Good morning. Thank you for joining us for our virtual sermon today, and happy Earth Day. It seems like a strange contradiction in terms to have a virtual celebration of Earth Day, but we're in kind of weird times, I think. So this is my second attempt to do this sermon. I was almost finished, and the phone rang. So that I've learned how to silence the phone. So hopefully we'll get through ship to stern on this. But I think Earth Day is a very important day for us to challenge ourselves in terms of what Christian theology has often been. To challenge ourselves by thinking how so much of the church opposes legislation that would help us deal with the climate crisis. And to ask through, not blaming anybody, not attacking anybody, but thinking through what is it about what we have been taught that makes it hard to be honest about science and about our situation in the world. So anyway, of all the things that John Calvin ever said, I think the only thing I really agree with that I've ever heard him say is that we have fallen from nature. I don't believe in original sin. I do believe that we have developed in a way that has made it hard for us to live natural lives. I think some of it is civilization, that we develop artificial value systems, that then we value property more than we value the web of life. And I think that hurts us. But I also think that we've evolved an intelligence that allows us to be in denial about the life energy within us. And so part of what religion can do is call us deeper into our own experience, to get our minds to say yes to the life process within us, to say yes to that pulse of life within us. But obviously a lot of times religion does just the opposite of that. And I think we see the results of that all around us. I think when you live in a culture that denies nature, that thinks the world was created by a human-like being, invisible, who crafted everything for us, life doesn't make a lot of sense. Disease doesn't make any sense. Earthquakes don't make any sense. Storms. And so then they blame disaster on people like gays and lesbians and say that gays and lesbians, bisexual, transgender, are abominations to nature. And yet they don't realize that the abomination to nature are things like fracking, pollution, the things that are throwing nature off balance. So I'm sometimes seen as attacking religion, but what I'm trying to do is have religion synchronize itself, harmonize itself with the best knowledge we have, but also the best art and the best ethics that we have. When I was a kid, it was always a mystery to me why some children wanted to hurt animals, particularly cats. They seem to really focus on getting us some joy and delight from hurting animals, and like trophy animals. I've never understood that, where people felt brave taking an elephant gun against a deer and then dismembering the deer and putting up the pieces. It somehow made them feel like they were tough. I think our president, I don't know what he thinks or feels internally, but certainly his rhetoric, I think, has played off of this kind of fallenness away from nature. He said at one point, the concept of global warming was created by and for the Chinese in order to make U.S. manufacturing non-competitive. So he's able to use that denial of nature and racism together in one little phrase there. He also said, when will our country stop wasting money on global warming and so many other truly stupid things and begin to focus on lower taxes? As though lower taxes is going to help us if we go extinct. So what we want to do is think today. We're not attacking anyone, but we're asking that question: how is it that our worldview as a culture has gone so far away from nature? As a Christian, we ask the question then, what is about Christianity that has made that possible? And if you're not a Christian, if you're not religious, we still need to ask that question because we're all affected. When a religion is the dominant religion in a culture and it has political power, then we all have to deal with that. That's a problem for all of us. So that's the question I want to ask today is how does the supernaturalism of Christianity pull us away from nature? And it was a perfect ending to my first run through on this sermon, to be interrupted by somebody calling me to witness, to read the Bible to me. So I think that there's kind of irony there too. Like I say, a lot of times people come to St. Andrews and they have the mistaken idea that I'm an atheist or that I'm attacking the idea of God. I'm not a literalist, but I'm not a theist or an atheist. I believe that there is a mystery to the universe, and I think it's right there. You can be scientific and still be struck with overwhelming reverence for what is there. And so you see scientists that have that reverence, you see mystics that have that reverence, and we want to bring those two together. We want to be both scientific and reverent. And I think when we look at Scripture with that attitude, it speaks to us much more profoundly. The story in Genesis is pretty ridiculous if you think it's literal. That a humanoid, invisible being, how can you be invisible and also be in human shape? Who knows? But crafted Adam out of the clay and then breathed life into it. Literally, that's what it says. But if we look at it as mystical poetry, nature mysticism, then it's very informative because we do come from the earth. We are evolved from the earth. The word Adam plays off of both human and the earth. If we were to translate into English, the guy's name would be Clay or Dusty. Right, you have a human being being crafted. Clearly, we need something that has the whole human situation, so not just male, but in the poetry, it's a guy named Adam. If it was like Clay or Dusty, then you'd realize it's both personal, but it's also cosmic. It's something bigger than just the individual that's there. This is the way it's expressed in different poems. This is Adam Watts, who said, "We do not come into this world, we come out of it, as leaves from a tree. As the ocean waves," in quotes, "the universe peoples. Every individual is an expression of the whole realm of nature, a unique action of the total universe." Einstein said something very similar when he said, "Our task must be to free ourselves by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature and its beauty." I believe that's what this poem, where Jesus says, "I am the vine, you are the branches." I believe it's that sense of both personal and universal that's being talked about there. The reason it's being put personally in this sort of humanoid shape is so we can feel it. So we'll realize that human beings are expressions of nature. At the same time, we come from a much deeper place and we're connected to the animals and the plants in ways that are very intimate as well. So one of the hymns in the Christian church that we use is we translate the sexism out of it and say, "This is a sacred world. And to my listening ears, all nature sings and round me rings the music of the spheres." That's the experience that I think that Jesus is trying to evoke, or whoever wrote these verses is trying to evoke, when that I am sayings are being used. Jesus says, "I'm the vine, you're the branches. Cut off from me, you can do nothing. Remain with me." Now, if that's a human being speaking, then it's calling you to a cult. And it says, if you're not Christian, then you're doomed. But if it's cosmic poetry, then Jesus is speaking as life itself, as the life process itself. And so then it's calling us to a deeper unity, to profound depth of experience. This is how the poet Rumi put a very similar kind of thing. You see these I am sayings where somebody personally embodies nature, embodies life. You see that a lot in Hinduism. I think that's what John is doing in the I am sayings of Christianity, where Jesus says, I'm the way, I'm the path, I'm the door. All of those things are trying to take us deeper. This is a Rumi, the Sufi poet, that says, I am the chain of being, the circle of the spheres, the scale of creation, the rise and fall. I'm what is and is not. I am the soul in all. And I think that poetry, you see it all over the world, where one human being has discovered the tie that binds us to plants and animals. And they sing a song that includes all beings, but it comes through us. That again, we're not put on the earth by a humanoid invisible being. We have evolved, emerged from the earth. And so we're intimate expressions of it. And how we live then is an expression of nature and life. Caring for the earth is an expression of who we most deeply and profoundly are. Violating the earth is a violation of who we most profoundly and deeply are. A word that we need to understand in this verse is the word glory, glorified. In English, the word glorified means to praise something, to say something nice about something. But in the roots of it, the Greek and Hebrew roots of it, it means to shine out of something, to emanate something. The glory of a person is the hair that grows out of their hair. The glory of the sun was the corona of the sun. And so when people in the Jewish and Christian scriptures talked about this glory, it was a kind of more radiant expression. It was a manifestation of something deeper. The word ecology comes from a Greek word that means home or house. So just as you have a house economy and you're trying to take care of your house, you patch the roof, you do those kinds of things. Ecology is looking at nature as our home. And deep ecology tells a different kind of story where the earth isn't created for human beings. Human beings have emerged from the earth, from nature. We're expressions of that. We're leaves on the tree, we're not the trunk. So we've seen this in so many ways in the last few weeks. But it's important to realize that when the Hebrew mind was expressed in these ancient texts, it wasn't violating nature in the same way that the Greek text did in early Christianity. That when Christianity went into the Greek mindset, then spirit became interpreted as something supernatural, something disembodied. In the Hebrew culture, the word for spirit means breath or wind. It's the circulation of things. So it's that part of nature that weaves us together. So it's not exactly physical, it's not supernatural. It's something deep and abiding. You can't put your finger in saying it's here or not there. They developed a mystical kind of poetry where they talked about wisdom as Sophia. And Sophia would say things like, I was here at the beginning, everything is created through me. And then Jesus quotes those poems. But the problem was when it got to Europe, people didn't know the poetry. They didn't understand that this was a cosmic poem, that Jesus wasn't talking about himself. If you go back and look at the story, Jesus says repeatedly, over and over again, I'm not talking about myself. If we understand Christianity literally, it alienates us from every other type of religion in the world, every other kind of non-religion, but also from the earth itself. We're not able to harmonize with the earth itself. As I say, Rumi sang that song, Krishna sang the song, John has Jesus sing that song, where somebody expresses the cosmic wisdom. But they're not talking about themselves. They're talking about the tie that binds everything together. When we look at the tree of life, we see that animals have similarities to one another. There's a tie that binds all the animals that have to navigate the wind. They have a kind of similarity in their body. The fish that go through the sea have a kind of similarity. That there's a tie that binds things together. In the Christian scripture, that was personified through Jesus. But if religion is going to have any worth for the future, we have to realize Jesus is not talking about himself. He's personifying this natural process, this life process. If we don't understand that, then Christianity becomes a problem. And you understand why all of these churches around the country attack ecology, attack science, because their idea of the spirit is supernatural, not ultimate natural. So even atheists like, who is it, Dawkins, said that our minds develop in a way that allow us to rebel against our genes. That's what is being talked about in the fall, the idea of original sin. It's that our intelligence has gotten so great, we're able to say no to our biology. And our destiny lies in re-harmonizing ourselves with life and with nature, saying yes to nature and not no. When people sang, "We are the world," it was kind of understood as, all human beings are one, in that raising money for the world. But Jesus is saying we are the world in a deeper way. Is saying that we are one with the plants, the animals, the processes of nature, the wind, water, are all part of our home. And so on this strange Earth Day sermon that's being projected out virtually, almost a contradiction in terms, but it calls us to think more deeply and profoundly about the religion we've been given and how it helps and how it hurts. And I think being a healthy religion, whether you're Christian or not, whether you're religious or not, to join in that conversation. How do we say yes to life? How do we say yes to both the science, but also the heart that needs to know it has a place, it has a home in the universe? For me, as a nature mystic, I'm not a theist, I'm not an atheist. I believe that there's a mystery there, and I want to affirm both the periodic chart, but also I don't want to blow out the flame on the burning bush. That nature strikes me with awe. It strikes me with reverence. It struck Einstein with an even more profound reverence because he was so much smarter. He was able to say yes to the mystery much more profoundly. But it wasn't over and against his science. It was through his science, through his love of art, his poetry, his music, that he was able to say yes to life, not shutting down what we know about science. Again, it feels like heaven when our heart is tuned to life and to the earth. It sounds like that hymn, "This is a sacred world, and to my listening ears, all nature sings, and round me rings the music of the spheres." That's the gift Jesus is trying to give, Krishna was trying to give, Einstein was trying to give. So many lovers of humankind and nature are trying to tell us nature is our home, and it's time for us to care for it. I invite you now to your own reflections on these words. Thank you so much again for joining us.